As we begin to talk about color theory, I wanted to bring to you a quote from artist Vasily Kandinsky. He said, "Color is a power which directly influences the soul." Now, he had a whole color theory which went even further than this. He actually claimed that colors cause the human soul to vibrate, and it is so powerful a tool that it influences human beings. So he thought colors could cure various physical or emotional problems, and that it really impacted the human nervous system. He said, "Psychologically, it has been proven that a red light can excite and have a stimulating effect on the heart, while the blue color can even cause a temporary paralysis." Now, I'm not aware of any scientific background for this. He was an artist, but I think you understand that probably from at some level, we understand that we are influenced by colors. And while I don't think color is a substitution for medical care, there are things that can soothe, excite, that can draw us in, that can turn us away using color. So let's think about this because we want to choose color wisely in your websites. So let's first of all learn some basic concepts about color theory. All right, we have primary colors, and the primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. We also have secondary colors, which are orange, violet, and green, and these are made from mixing two of those primary colors together. And then we have tertiary colors, and the 6 tertiary colors are created by mixing one primary with an equal part adjacent secondary color. So the colors on the color wheel can be described by tints, tones, and shades, depending on if you blend the colors with white, gray, or black. So let me show you. So a color tint is when you take that hue and you blend it with white. And so that's when we get a tint. A color tone is when you blend that hue with gray, and we obviously have a different result. And then a tone is when we take that same color shade is when we take that same hue and blend it with black. All right, so a tone is with gray, tint is with white, and a shade is with black. When you are choosing a color scheme for your website, there are different ways that you can choose to use colors. If you think of the color wheel, then we can choose to have monochromatic color scheme, a complementary color scheme, analogous color scheme, a warm color scheme, and a cool color scheme. Now I'm going to go through each of these one at a time and give you an example of a website that uses this. Let's start out with monochromatic. So first of all, mono means one, chroma is color. So obviously this color scheme is using one color, one hue and its values. And by reducing it down to one color, it can seem very calming. Now, although it's only one color, we can have different tints, tones, and shades. So for example, let me show you this website in which of course it's using green, but we do see that there is some variety in what hue, tone, tint, shade that we have here. So it doesn't appear boring, but I think perhaps you can kind of feel the calming aspect of this. Next are complementary colors. So complementary colors are going to be two colors that are on the exact opposite of the color wheel. And so usually we're going to choose a dominant color. That's the color where you're going to see the most in a website. And then you choose a complementary color from that opposite side of the color wheel to highlight important information. So from a visual hierarchy standpoint, from a visual hierarchy standpoint, you will have that opposite color be kind of a pop to draw the eye. So let me give you an example of this with this website. So we have the yellow background on the one web page, and that pink is that complementary color. And then we have the purple and that blue. And if we go back here, we have the blues and kind of the pinks and purples are all in those red shades. And so that's how those are the complementary colors. We can also have analogous colors. And so the analogous color schemes is when we have 3 to 5 colors that are adjacent to each other on the color wheel. And on web design, actually, we're going to really recommend that you pick 3 colors if you're going to do this. 5 on a web page does seem to be busy. So unless you want to give your users the feeling of being busy, then don't use too many colors. So the analogous colors create harmony. They're a little bit more muted because we don't have a lot of stark differentiation. They're all quite compatible. So let me give you an example of this, in which we have all these browns, oranges, rust yellows, and so these are going to be the colors in here. I have them marked with the arrows. So I think you can see we do have some difference, but it's not as stark as, say, if you had a blue background and a red box, a red rectangle. That's going to grab more attention. Then we have the warm color scheme, and the warm colors are found on that right side of the wheel, and these are all the colors that are found in fire and the sun. So if I'm trying to have a memory mnemonic here, basically just warm, fire, sun, and then that we have like the red of fire, the yellow of the sun, and that should help. All right, so here's an example from this museum. And so we have all of these colors that are quite warm. Then we can have cool colors. And cool colors are going to be the colors that are on the left side of the color wheel. And so think of snow and ice. And these tend to kind of go into the background. So when I write here, they tend to recede in a composition. They don't grab attention as much. They're more subtle. They let your objects or your typography stand out more. So let me give you a couple examples here. 2 different examples. One uses the blue and one uses the green here. And so these are the cool colors, and then we get to focus on what's in the forefront of it. All right, then let's talk about triadic colors. And this is very common for websites. Triadic colors are 3 colors that are 120 degrees from each other. So, if you look at my arrows here, you can kind of see what we're talking about. And this is one of the best color schemes for a website. I mentioned we often like to have 3 colors in a website. We like to have one dominant, one that's secondary, and one that's an accent color. And so this is something you might think about doing. Let me give you an example here in which we have the green, the blue, and the browns. And so for this one, that green is dominant. The blue is our secondary color, and by secondary, I don't mean back at the beginning, whereas like at the beginning of this PowerPoint, I talked about a secondary color being orange, violet, and green. That's not the point when we're talking about dominant and a secondary and accent color. Here we're talking about the color that's used the most, dominant. The color that's used the second most is our secondary, and then our accent is what's used the least. And so just to keep that straight. There is a 60-30-10 rule when you have 3 colors. So about 60% of that web page should be your dominant color, 30% should be a secondary color, and about 10% should be an accent color. Now you can sometimes mix this up on different web pages. So your website has an overall color scheme, but then you can sometimes mix it up. So let me give you a quick example. So here we have a website that has white, black, and yellow. And on this one, the white is the dominant, 60%, the yellow is 30%, and the black is 10%. If we go to another page, though, we have where now the black is the secondary color, that's the 30%, and the yellow has become much less, and it is about, it's probably even less than 10% on this one. But you get the idea that you can, hopefully, that you can change it a little bit. All right, let's talk about the emotions of color next. So in general, kind of using how we think of colors in terms of an advertising or a user-centered web design aspect. So the reds are excitement and passion, the oranges, energy, active. We get the yellows that are for optimism. We get the green, nature, healing, blue, technology and trust, purple, that creativity, the pinks into the reds are romance and happiness, and then black is luxury and sophistication. I have another chart just so you could see kind of this idea of what the colors mean, but also take a look at logos or brands that use these colors and kind of see how it makes sense with it. So I'll just let you look at that for a second. You can pause the video if you want to look at it more. But think about this. Where does your brand fit in your website? What color is going to bring that feeling that you want your users to experience? So think about it. All right, let's talk about some color resources, because when you're going to choose your different shades, we have to make sure that we're choosing colors that are going to work well. So first of all, there is a resource called My Color Space, and let us go there right now. All right, we are at My Color Space, and what I can do is take a hex code and put it in here. So now what I'm going to do for this example, I'm going to go back to my brand guide that I might be using. So like this is the brand guide for Lee University. Let's say I take this hex code, go back to My Color Space, and now I can paste it in here, and then I'm going to generate, see what it gives me. And so it's going to give lots of options here. So there's a generic. Here it's giving matching, a spot palette, twisted spot palette, a classy palette, a cube palette, switch palette, small switch, skip gradient, natural, matching. So it gives me some different choices here on what I could choose. If I don't like these, I could, obviously go on to other things. But interesting on this one, what they call the dust palette, you can see there's actually very similar to what Lee University has, in which we have maroon, the blue, and we have the grays. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point somebody did run through a site such as this to make sure that they had good colors that were congruent with each other, that worked well. All right, so that's one source that we have for choosing colors. Another color resource is Paletten.com, and this is one that in particular will help you with accessibility. If you remember, accessibility when it comes to web design is making sure that people with various medical conditions can still access your website. So in particular, we're usually talking about sight when it comes to color, also when it comes to fonts and typography. So we want to make sure that people who have difficulties with eyesight can still enjoy and find our website accessible to them. So there is this particular color resource that will help us make sure that we're thinking about this and we're making good choices. All right, I am now on Paladin.com, and you'll notice that there are a bunch of ads in this particular one, and you just have to kind of deal or cope with it. So we have a color wheel here, and I can put in the color that I want it to match. So I can click here and put that hex code in there. I'm just going to hit the return or enter key, and now it is going to give me some various colors here. And so I can see what it's recommending here, and what I can do with this is I can even go to a preview, and let's just do a default with text so I can see what this would look like with some text in it. I can see some examples of what this might look like on a page. So that kind of tells me what I could expect to see. This is on a white page. What would it look like on a dark page? Oh, and let me just point out, you can see we have some problems, like having black text over this dark of a blue makes it pretty much unreadable here as well. So we can see some problems with this, but let's look at a dark page. Still problems here. Still problems, and you can just see that this particular color scheme is not that well thought out for being able to we wouldn't really want to use this particular one on our page. So could we fine tune? Sure. So we can go in here and we can fine tune, and we can change what some of these what the palette is. So that's one way that we can do it. And then let's go to a vision simulation here and see what would it look like for somebody who's colorblind. And here, let's see, let's go to this type of colorblindness, which has one of the largest amounts of people dealing with it. And so it is telling us that this would not be a good one for somebody with this particular type of problem. So again, let me just put here, we have this yellow here, and it is going to tell us that no, this is not a good idea. We could look at something else. We can find lots of things, but we can also see there's a warning sign here, and it's not going to be something we want to use. So that's what I like about Paladin, is that it will help me with deciding not only what colors should I use, but also how well these are going to work. The other way I could choose colors is what if I could spread these out and then ask for different color choices here. And so you can see you can play around with this, but it's another good way to be choosing colors and finding out what works and what doesn't work. And so hopefully that's helpful, that you can kind of see. And I'm going to go back one more time and see if we helped at all with this particular one. Yeah, it's still not great. But this is a good thing to take a look at just to make sure that we have accessibility. And a last thought about accessibility, when we're building websites, we do need to meet federal guidelines, and one of the ways we can do this the easiest is we can avoid having call to actions on complementary colors. So having like a light blue on a medium blue. We should use contrasting colors to make important actions easy to read and follow. And If you want to get more information on accessibility, the U.S. Web Design Standards is widely available on the internet, and it has a lot of information about typography as well as colors. And so these are things that certainly you can investigate more if you would like to. All right, now it's your turn. You get to choose your website colors. So as you do this, just a few things to keep in mind. Think about your consumer. We're working with creating user-centered designs for our website. So think, who is that prototypical consumer profile that you created back at the beginning of class? Let's say it's Henry. What will Henry respond to? And so keep in mind also user interface, making sure the functionality and that the color choices you have help with the functionality. And then keep in mind the user experience. So how do you want your user to feel? And choose your colors, keeping all these things in mind. Enjoy!